What's the reason that China is a threat and an adversary? It's clearly a competitor. It's a big country that makes a lot of the stuff that we make and makes some of it cheaper, makes some of it better. But in what way is it a threat to your life in the Bay Area or my life in New York or that proverbial person that we just talked about in Georgia, such that we need to erect an architecture of threat containment?
That's right. So the answer is not difficult, but it's also not so widely discussed. China would like us to be a much weaker country so that we don't threaten their hegemony. China's leaders want power, especially power over Asia, also power in the world. But China would like to dominate the Middle East so they can get secure supply of oil, but it's not a high priority for them. But China would like to dominate Asia because of prestige, history, it's what they think is their place in the world. And when I say they, I don't mean regular Chinese people, some regular Chinese people, certainly. I mean the guys in charge. China is basically, it's a one-man show, one man and his cronies. It didn't used to be like that, but now it is. Xi Jinping has been very good at riding herd on the Chinese Communist Party and basically personalizing it. He has reaccumulated something approaching the power of Mao in terms of how much he controls this party. Actually, maybe more in some ways. So what these guys, the dudes in charge, and not just Xi Jinping, but Wang Huning and all these other guys who are his cronies and buddies, they want to dominate Asia, and America is a possible threat to that. And they thus want to push us out, make us, and also just weaken us, make us a weaker country, so that we don't threaten them, right? Like if America's strong, maybe we have, we go through a period of détente or whatever, but ultimately it's better for those guys from their point of view. They want us to be a weaker. And so that's a problem for us, because how can they weaken us? Well, first, what they can do is they can cut us off from important sources of trade. Much of our trade goes through the waters around China, and our navy, our powerful navy, protects freedom of the seas, freedom of navigation in the waters through which most of our trade passes, much of our trade passes. China would like to take that away. So China did this thing called the Nine-Dash Line, where they claimed the entire South China Sea. They claimed this maritime territory and said, within this, we get to decide which ships pass. Now, that's in direct violation of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, violation to how, to the sort of rules of freedom of navigation that the United States Navy has basically enforced since World War II. And it would be a return to older patterns where whole maritime areas were controlled by certain navies and where traffic through those could police those. That's one example. That's what they did when we were nominally, still the most powerful country in the world, sort of. And that's what they did then. Since they're getting more powerful, they will do even more of that. And if we sort of let up and take away our navy goes poof, or, essentially China is much more powerful than us, they'll do a lot more of that. And that also includes cutting deals with countries that are rich in minerals that we don't have here. Our economy takes a lot of metals and a lot of, chemicals from all around the world that we dig up out of the ground. And those are often dug up in developing countries. And if right now we have deals with the developing countries to get those minerals, part of the way we get those minerals is to pay them, basically give them a bunch of aid, foreign aid, in exchange for getting mineral rights and assuring the supply of minerals to us. And we just cut off all our foreign aid. But China certainly would like to make deals with those countries to make sure that the minerals all go to China instead of us. That's one example of how they could weaken us. China would also like to control our media through TikTok, the most important media source that's a billion times more important than your podcast or my blog will ever get. And, China controls that directly. They control the algorithm of that very directly. They would like to control even more, but they already do control that, and they would like to use that to sow chaos and dissent in American society. If you're looking for negativity, like if you're just looking out and you're frustrated because all these Americans are very negative, well, part of that is because, our foreign adversaries would like to amplify domestic dissent, would like to make people believe in conspiracy theories and believe that everything's going terrible and get angry all day at politics, get angry at our leaders all day. They want that to happen. They want you to be angry all day, and they want your listeners to be angry all day. And through algorithmic control, they can further that goal. So those are just two examples of ways in which China's leadership would like to weaken us so that we don't pose a threat to their power in Asia. One reason we know they'll do this, and they're already doing this, is because we did this to the Soviet Union. We did this in the Cold War. And China's not as nice as we were. China's actually a meaner country tougher. They're not as mean and tough as the Soviet Union, but they're as mean and tough. They're meaner and tougher than us. And the fact that we did these things means that they certainly won't hesitate to do these things. This is how superpower politics is played. A weakened, divided, or even collapsed or much poorer America is in the interest of sort of the ruling clique in China right now, unfortunately.